WMEL.
That's the sound of the 1951 Ford Victoria Hot Rod, fully restored and donated from the private collection of A.J. Hires. It's the 2017 Win the Classic Ford car raffle to support Helping Seniors of Brevard. You have to see this car. I'm Kerry Fink, and I'm inviting you to visit helpingseniors.brevard.org for full information on this exciting car raffle. That's helpingseniors.brevard.org. Stay tuned for more info on the Talk to Me radio network. We're glad that WMEL cares about the space and Treasure Coast.
This is Joe Steckler, folks, your host for Helping Seniors. The Helping Seniors Show is the radio arm of Helping Seniors of Brevard, an organization designed to inform, educate, and help seniors and those that care for seniors in Brevard County, Florida. Quite frankly, we get calls from all over the United States for people that want help here, but we also get calls for questions on how to do things that we talk about here in other parts of the country. Quite amazingly, most of the things are done the same way, with some small nuances, but the important thing is that it's a place where people can go to get pointed in the right direction, and that's really important. The phone number to reach our information specialist at the office, Kay Kaiser, is area code 321-473-7770. We pay for our work. I'm a volunteer. I'm the chairman of the board right now until we elect somebody else, but I'm a non-paid volunteer. We have 3 paid staff, and we're a small organization, but we take pride in what we do in getting articles into the newspaper and on radio and on television stations and out to so many resources so that people can be better informed about organizations like the Eye Institute, Dr. Lee Sheldon, Bill Johnson, who is my panelist today. Bill's an elder law attorney. In fact, they're the only board-certified elder law attorney in Brevard County, Florida, and we have hundreds of attorneys here. And this is something that you need to know is to, when you do go for help, at least to get the best qualified people you can get so you get more bang for your buck. At least that's my opinion. But we also have a lot of other organizations like Market Street Memory Cares on Beachside, Assisted Living, Seniors Helping Seniors, Hometown Newspaper. There are just a lot of sponsors. And if you look and go to our website, helpingseniors.brevard.org, you can see all our seniors. You can check out our car raffle. You can see how we write articles to bring information to you so that you can do a better job of trying to prepare your own plan for how you want to grow older and how you're going to pay for growing older. It's extremely important. It's not going to happen overnight. It's something that takes time. And when I talked to Bill about what he wanted to talk about for the radio show today, which actually we wanted to talk about it last month, but since we weren't here, we had to leave, and we came back. We're still going to talk about it today because the hurricane season is not over, and there are just so many things that I think that hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Americans have realized over the last month and a half is more than going to a supermarket and seeing how many bottles of bottled water and canned goods you can lay in and call that, and get batteries for your flashlights and call that hurricane preparation bill.
There is a lot more involved in that.
That's Bill Johnson, folks. Bill's our elder law attorney, and Bill's my panelist today. Bill, from a legal viewpoint, why did you really want to talk about a hurricane show?
And I wanted to talk generally about emergencies, what you need to have in preparation of an emergency. And if you've done your document planning and you have like a will, a trust, a power of attorney, healthcare surrogate, living will, you probably need to have them in some sort of format that not only can you protect them in the event you have a house fire, but you also need to be able to protect them in the event you have a house flood. And so a lot of your legal documents, you need to have something that, put in something that is not only waterproof, but fireproof as well, and also that is portable. So if you leave the house you can take that with you without worries that, something will happen to it.
Are there cases like that you can buy reasonably on the market here available in Brevard County?
Yeah, you can. If you go to Walmart, they sell fireproof safes that I would think, would tend to be pretty waterproof. But you can go online, Amazon, or something like that, and be able to find something that would meet those requirements. I'll tell you a story that's interesting that illustrates this. Years back, we had a hurricane that was coming here towards Brevard County, and everybody on the beach side was evacuating. And this gentleman who was one of my clients, he took all his important stuff, put them in the trunk of his car, and he drove over to the mainland to stay at a friend's house. And the hurricane came through, and he drove back out to his house when they opened the bridges, and he got out there, and his house was in great shape. Nothing had gone wrong with that. He opened up the trunk of his car, and his whole trunk had flooded. And in there was just a big, washing machine of all his legal papers. So he ended up having to get all that stuff redone. And some of that you can't replace if it's one-of-a-kind originals, like deeds and things like that. So, it's best to have everything in some sort of portable format, and that is fireproof and waterproof.
You mean, wait, go back. I assume from what you said, he had it in the back trunk of his car, but he left his car out in the open, and he didn't take his stuff in the house?
And the truck leaked, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
And so the house was fine when he got back, and everything he brought with him was destroyed.
So that's not a very good moral of the story.
Right. So you have to be able to, not only bring your legal documents, but you also have to bring some of those things I just mentioned, like titles to your car, the deed to your house, any life insurance policies you may have. Some of those things that cannot be replaced, you probably need to bring as well.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. I had the same thought, and my wife has been after me to get all this stuff in a couple of hanging files in the front of a couple of my file cabinets, and all of a sudden, in the event of an emergency, I can grab that file and leave. Mm-hmm. And I've been doing that. And when you start collecting things, when you look at your insurance, you've got, of course, you have almost all this stuff available through the insurance company, the car leasing agency. If you're leasing a car, you have it all available. But finding it all, finding the phone numbers, realizing what you got, that's really the problem.
Right.
So what I did, I've been going through, and I have this one file, I call it insurance, and as I go through all my paperwork, anything to do with my we have our household insurance for hurricanes and stuff like that, but we also have the flood damage policy.
Well, I was going to bring that up a little later, but while we're talking about it, most people think that, your house is covered under your homeowners for anything hurricane related, and that's simply not true.
It's not true.
If you have a rising water incident, which is what we would call a flooding, that is not covered by your homeowners. Usually that's an exclusion, and typically you have a separate policy, and you have flood insurance that would cover that in the event of that. And if you just wanted to, go look back at the pictures of Harvey and what Harvey did, and the majority of what you see as damage there was, or the worst damage, was all flooding.
Yeah.
And something like 75% of those houses in Houston did not have flood insurance.
Well, they had because they had not flooded before, so it probably had something to do with the floodplain itself, and then but. That's the other part of this insurance thing. Of course, we've got the water damage under our house insurance policy. We also have the flood insurance, and that's what you really. Anybody listening to this show today, they should be making notes and should be questioning themselves on the different aspects of what you and I are talking about, Bill.
Well, when you go, if you buy a piece of property and you get a mortgage, if you are in a floodplain, the lender will require, or it's required, that you get flood insurance. And that'll be available through the National Flood Insurance Program. If you don't reside in a floodplain, nobody will bring this up to you. Nobody will tell you you can get this. And it surely is something you need to think about, especially if something happens and all of a sudden my house isn't in a floodplain, but we have two drains that typically can get clogged up, and then all of a sudden my street floods. And in a good downpour, like they got in Harvey, 48 inches, my house probably would flood. So there are, sometimes it's a good idea to get something you don't think you may need, but just to have the peace of mind for it.
And over the years, I've lived in Brevard, folks. Over the last 30 years, the price of that insurance has gone from roughly $444 a year to $543 a year. So that's very inexpensive. It's great peace of mind, and there are better insurance companies out there, and that's something else, Bill. Let's just talk about that for a minute. The cost of insurance, contrary to everything you hear, I think, generally speaking, if a person really makes up their mind and want to do some research, you can find affordable insurance if you really try. Now, you may live in certain spots where you're just not going to be able to do it. And I know, heaven forbid, there are places like that. But I know that my own insurance, the company I had refused to continue insuring me, so I had to go out and find a new one. I got the same coverage for $1,000 less from another company that's AA rated. They're there.
Good find.
That was a good find, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But that's the other thing, is that just because somebody says they're got all these ratings, you really have to check them out. Just before I got ready to come out to the radio show today, I had a phone call, and I'm not going to mention names or anything, but this was a purported construction company that was trying to help people fix things damaged from from Irma, and they were going to be in our area such and such a date, and wanted to know if they could stop by to see if we had things to fix. I said, quite frankly, sir, we've had it's all been repaired, and what damage we have hasn't been repaired. But I would assume I allowed those people to come out. They probably would have found a bunch of things wrong. And after they looked at me and my ability to walk, they probably found a lot of things wrong, because they knew I couldn't climb up on a ladder and check it out, and they would probably end up scamming me for something. And these are, good reputable construction people don't really make a habit of going around calling people.
Yeah, and you have to watch out, even, if you're hiring these people and they get hurt on your property, that can be another ball of wax. You could be ended up holding the bag for their injuries. So you shouldn't have anybody come on your property who is not licensed, bonded, and insured.
How do you really check that out?
Well, you ask them to provide proof.
What do they have to show you, Bill?
Well, the main one we want to see is their casualty insurance, to make sure that if somebody gets injured, they have insurance that's going to cover that. Workers' comp.
Workers' comp?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But, we can talk about from a legal viewpoint, and you're like, important paper, you sort of mentioned those. You talked about the documents being stored. You're talking about a lockbox. And a lot of people, some of these things get pretty big, and there's a lot of stuff to carry, and a lot of people can't carry it. As we get older, it's harder and harder to move this stuff, grab it, and everything else. Are there permanent type locations at attorneys' offices or anything that you can?
Well,
what can you do?
If you put it in a safe deposit box, that's pretty much going to hopefully be fireproof and waterproof to some extent. The safe is generally not going to blow away in the wind or anything like that. So
right.
That's a fairly good location to have things. But then again, you don't have them with you. So if something happens and you need, that document with you, you're not going to have it. So the answer is not for your originals. There's no place that really you can keep your originals. There are a variety of services that now you can use one of these services, and they will, you email them your documents, and they'll put them in a file somewhere, an email server. And then if you call them up, they'll send copies of the documents to whomever.
Okay. Well, I just want to brag for just a minute because Terry and I evacuated this time because I just didn't like what I was watching on TV. But by selecting out over the last several weeks and doing a better job of reducing my own paperwork, I was able to put my things like a quitclaim deed to the house, my long-term care insurance papers, which in case something happened, I would have those with me. I wouldn't have to worry about phone numbers or trying to prove anything in case I got sick. But I had all that in one location, and I was able to put that in a briefcase real easy and take it into the hotel room with us. Everything that Terry and I thought was important, we were able to get the bell guy to put it on the cart and take it into the room, and that's probably one of the lightest traveling experiences we had. We did evacuate, and let's talk about that. Go ahead.
And we haven't really touched on this, but you also need to bring all your health insurance documents, your cards, and if you have prescriptions, you need to bring your prescriptions with you, and your prescription drug cards as well, so that you have all that with you in case you have a long time before you get to go back home.
Yeah, that's just talk about it. You and I can convince on here for a minute, and I bet people can write some things down. But one of the very first things I talk about, since I do take more medicine than I want to take, but it's prescribed by the doctor for all the problems that I have, and I don't really have a choice right now. Now, with all the stuff going on, is not the time to try to take myself off of medications. But knowing the problem, I doubly checked to make sure that my prescriptions were all current, and that I had an adequate supply of pills. In fact, all of my medicines that I had to take daily, I put in one special part of my luggage so that I had all of my prescription medications with me. I took every one of them. I didn't leave anything at home because, for like you said, I didn't know how long I was going to be gone. And if you're out, I had one time I went on a vacation and I took a medical prescription along drug with me that expired, and it was pure hell trying to get that replaced but I finally did, and the only reason I was able to do it is because Patrick worked over a telephone with the Boone Naval Clinic at the Naval Amphibious Base in Norfolk, Virginia. I was fortunate because it was a military-to-military formulary, but had I been Joe Doe's citizen, I doubt I could have made that happen. So that's the other part of this thing, and the real part of this, of the essence of the show, I think, Bill, is that people have to realize that the planning doesn't start when you're at day 2 before you have to evacuate.
Correct. You need to get all this in place before it happens.
Yeah. There is an awful lot. It's just like, go ahead.
And also, if you have special needs, you need to know beforehand where you're going to go, because not every place can accommodate special needs. So if you are wheelchair bound, you've got to have a plan of going to a facility that is able to handle somebody in a wheelchair. And there are certain shelters that are earmarked for people with special needs to go to, and you need to know where those are if you're going to be leaving to go to a shelter.
I have never been to a shelter in a crisis situation. I never have, Bill, but I have heard other people say that they are absolutely horrible at some locations. I had a lady tell me that they put her right next to the bathroom, and there were people going in and out all night long, and she never slept a bit because of being stepped over by people. And, it sounds real good, shelter. And I know we all like to save money. We all like to do that. But sometimes it's penny wise and pound foolish to try to save a buck when if you know that you've got a medical condition and you know that you're susceptible to having problems if you get overheated. And if you just ignore all that and then under the pretense of saving a few dollars, you decide I'm going to ride this hurricane out, and you lose power, you lose everything. And if you're on the barrier islands, if you cannot get back due to water, what the heck are you going to do?
Right. And if there are instances where there have been entire assisted living facilities and nursing homes that have to evacuate. Sometimes they evacuate to these special needs shelters. We have the horror story coming out of Hollywood where I guess it's now 12 people have died from that particular facility. Yeah. If you are in charge of somebody, like a guardian, power of attorney, healthcare surrogate, you got to have a plan for whoever you're in charge of, too, not just yourself.
You're right. And that's not always the easiest thing to solve at the last minute. In fact, we have started looking into possible places that, in the event, we have relatives in the area, but sometimes the relatives have their own problems with trying to take care of their families, so you don't want to be a burden on somebody if you can prevent it. Folks, we're gonna wrap it up here. Take a mid-show break. We'll pick it back up on the far side after a couple of minutes of listening to some talk and music. And stay with us because we got several other really important things we want to talk about on this hurricane planning that you really need to think about. Stay with us.
That's the sound of the 1951 Ford Victoria Hot Rod, fully restored and donated from the private collection of A.J. Hires. It's the 2017 Win the Classic Ford car raffle to support Helping Seniors of Brevard. You have to see this car. I'm Kerry Fink, and I'm inviting you to visit helpingseniors.brevard.org for full information on this exciting car raffle. That's helpingseniors.brevard.org. Stay tuned for more info on the Talk to Me radio network. We're glad that WMEL cares about the space and Treasure Coast.
This is Joe Steckler, folks, your host for Helping Seniors. We're back live with the second half of the show. My guest today is Bill Johnson, elder law attorney. I just want to remind everybody that Helping Seniors is designed to inform, educate, and get information out to seniors and those that care for seniors, and especially this has been made more evident. Our phones have been quite busy as we got ready for Harvey and Irma, and then in the aftermath of both hurricanes. Kay, the phone has been very, very busy answering questions, and a lot of it has resulted in people needing the services of attorneys like Bill. Places for helping people to come out and help them take care of people in their homes, like seniors helping seniors, repair people. We've had a lot of calls for roofing help and things like that, and we're very, very, very fortunate that we have some really good sponsors that we know are honest people. And by you're calling Kay at 473-7770, and if she gives you the name of a person to come out and help you, you know you're not going to be scammed. And just because the price of a repair is not as low as you think it might be, just remember, construction materials, everything else, costs have gone up. And when you have such conditions as we have right now, getting a job done is not always something that can be done overnight. It takes time sometimes to get all this stuff done. And one thing that we have almost over half of our county, Bill, are classified as senior citizens. And I've for years, people know that I am in my 80s, and I make no secret to hide it, because I think it's important for people to know that some of us are not to admit that we can no longer do some of the things as well in our 70s and 80s that we could do in our 50s and 60s. And the other night at the house, I had one of the clips come off of my four-wheel rollator. It's a device, it's got a seat on it, because if I get tired, I can sit down on it. It's a smart thing to have. I don't like the three-wheel things because I think you can tip over. But I'll be darned if one of my little locks came off, and I took it and put it on my desk, and I meant to fix it. I just got doing something else and forgot about it. So I'm wheeling this thing around the house, and Terry asked me to look at something, and I sat down on that stupid rollator. And the next thing, my head banged the wall, and I fell. Not fell. I sort of eased myself onto the floor with a jolt and into the wall, where I banged my head, and I put ice on that. And I think it stirred up the gout in my knee, and I paid for it. But my big problem was I no longer have the strength that I had when I was young. So it was harder for me to get up. I just couldn't put my hands out and bounce right back up. I had to use a chair to help myself get up. The same thing you start thinking about bad weather or emergencies coming in. Yeah, you may have shutters of a certain type in your garage, like those aluminum things with the sharp edges that'll cut you to pieces when you try to put them up, or those Lexang things that are sharp edged also and extremely heavy. And you might say, okay, I'm going to put shutters on my house, and I'm going to put aluminum ones on because they're the cheapest and they'll get the job done. Folks, getting the job done is not always the best thing. We put the Lexang things on, spent a high lot of money on them, and realized we can't put them up. So now we had a company come out and put the shutters on that slide right across. Very easy to open and close. Minimal effort for us, and in the process of trying to save money and get something really good, we had something that was good, but we didn't have the strength to put it up. And when you have a county of so many senior people, you have a gym, and you teach a martial arts class, and you're very involved in fitness and everything else. But in thinking about hurricane preparation, what are some of the advices you would give to people that, since you do own a gym?
Well, I was just thinking of the same thing you were thinking of storm shutters and being able to put the storm shutters up. A lot of people move here from somewhere else, and they buy a house that may already have storm shutters, or they get storm shutters installed, but they never think about what's involved with putting them up.
You're right.
Especially when you got to get them up within a certain time frame. And then, at that particular point, if you can't get them up, then trying to find somebody to help you get them up, it's too late, really.
It's hard to find somebody around this area. It's not the easiest thing to do is find a handyman.
Correct. And so I just had a handyman in my office the other day, and you should see his workload. It's incredible.
You see what?
I had a handyman in my office, and his workload is just incredible.
Okay.
Just how much stuff he's got to do in a week. And you put in storm shutters or something like that in there, and, they're working overtime. So if you don't have something set up, the moral of the story, I guess, is get something you can put up, or if you can't put it up, you've got to arrange for somebody else to be able to put it up.
And let's just think about this. It was why, when you're listening to the show, folks like Bill and I are talking today, this is not something we prepared at all. This is completely, we have a lot of things we want to talk about, but a lot of these things come to mind as we discuss the show. And in terms of thinking about shutters and things like this, Bill's absolutely right. Heck, I thought I'd always be easy to put this kind of stuff up, but it's not true.
No.
It's not that easy to do.
And also, if you have any sort of special medical needs, you got to make sure those can be met. One of the things we're seeing out of Puerto Rico is all the dialysis centers closed down. All of them. So if you need dialysis, it was a nightmare trying to find somewhere, especially once electricity went out, that could do dialysis. So you got to be thinking ahead of time if you have a loved one who's, needing dialysis, of where you're going to be if the storm's coming, so that you can get that dialysis at an appropriate time.
Yep. It goes to, I think, a point, Bill, that no matter how we talk about some of this stuff, there are always things that are going to have to be done that we don't think about. And going through the, I did a test on the internet before I came this morning, and I pulled up one thing, and I just want to read some things. We were talking about. This had to do with was one of the FEMA sites, the Federal Emergency Management Agency sites, and it talked about gathering information, planning and taking action, recover, and resources. And the first thing was talked about was gather information, and then have a list of contacts for the sources and things that you need. You just can't pull that number for the special needs shelter out of your hat. And if you're going to go someplace to ride out the storm, you don't make that thing a half hour before you leave the house to go there. Those places are filled up. Terry and I went over to Orlando, and they had people there that they had moved 500 military people from the Homestead, Miami area up to the Disney resort hotels. So, they move a lot of people around. There were millions of people moving. And you have to think about that. But the thing that Bill talked about, planning and taking action and having an emergency plan, both for your documents and everything, and know your evacuation route. I had somebody jokingly, Bill, said something to me, and it's probably it's going to go fly in somebody's faces in view of this, what's happened in Las Vegas. But I've been around guns my whole life, and I consider them as a safety protection item. And I used to hunt, but I don't do that anymore. But if I was going to evacuate in a storm, and I knew that if I didn't have lodging and if I was going to have to sleep someplace in my car with my family, I would want to have some way to protect myself, because the chances are that you're going to find people that prey on people in a lot of these roadside parking spots.
And also, just like you're saying, what if you don't make it there? What if you get stuck on the open road and you have, you're stuck in traffic for 4 or 5 hours? You need to also have enough gas and also have enough supplies if you have any of these medical conditions to be able to, last that long on the road.
Right. You should start out with a full tank of gas, if at all possible. At least plan ahead that far. Take some water with you. You can take granola bars and stuff like that. And a lot of people, I don't think this is the time you should worry about whether it's health food or diet food or anything like that. I think that if you have a medical condition, you got to take food that you can eat safely. But you should have some kind of a thing to tide you and your family over in case you do have to stop someplace. We went to a restaurant to get supper one night after we got back, and it took us 2.5 hours to eat to get served. 2.5 hours. And, of course, I'm not going to mention where it was, but, heavens, we were lucky the place was just open. And starting at 9 o'clock at night, they had to stop serving people. They couldn't admit any more people because they knew they were short on service staff and everything else. People were protecting themselves. And I could see people get upset. We as a nation have come to want to have high expectations of people providing for us and not realizing that sometimes that we have to provide for ourselves.
Well, a lot of people I know, when they do documents like healthcare surrogates or somebody becomes a guardian, a lot of times they pick the child who is in the healthcare field, like a nurse or a doctor. And the one unique thing about nurses and doctors is when we have an emergency, they can't leave. A lot of times they have to go to the hospital and work.
Right.
So if you're the decision maker for your parent or something like that, and they have dementia, you may not be able to be there when they have to move. So you have to have this stuff even planned out further ahead.
I guess there's just absolutely probably no way that you can think of everything that you have to do. But I think the smart person is the one that sits down and takes his computer or takes a typewriter or a pen and pencil on a piece of paper and starts to write down the things that they know they individually have to do. And I think a half hour just invested in a project like that could pay tremendous dividends in the future.
I agree. And it's probably more importantly so if you are not a Floridian and you're not used to having to deal with these things, that you really, read the literature and listen to the TV shows that talk about how to prepare.
Yeah, and speaking, if you're not a Floridian and you're not aware of it, the first time I encountered the term perk, having to do with whether the ground could accept the water or not, was when we moved to Alabama, and I was stationed at Auburn University. So much of that was Alabama clay there, and the ground did not perk, and the water did not soak in, and when the ground becomes saturated, folks, it just doesn't. It doesn't take up that water as fast down in the aqueduct as it used to.
Right. It's kind of like I went and visited friends out in the Rockies, and they're driving around in the middle of winter, and you look in the back of their car, and they all have heavy blankets and shovels, and you can kind of go, well, what's all that for? And they're like, well, if the car breaks down, we may have to winter here in place until somebody comes and gets us.
So they have to be prepared.
Yeah, they have to be prepared for even running out of gas.
Okay, let's completely shift thought from another show today. I just want to remind everybody before we run out of time today that we are in the Brevard Helping Seniors is right in the midst of our raffle of a 1951 Ford Victoria. The raffle is going to take place at the American Muscle Car Museum on 10 February 2018. So we're about 5 months away from that, and we could sure use your help. I'm not ashamed to say that nonprofits depend on the support of average people to pay our bills. Now, you have to decide which organizations you believe help people, could help you, are necessary to protect the general public. Which organizations can do more to help many people? And I think that we're going to have to start thinking about that a little bit more. And some of my columns I've been writing, Bill, for the newspaper, I've been getting a lot of feedback from private citizens about they're not realizing that some of the community organizations are so high in overhead costs, and that actually not that many dollars go to help people compared to what it costs them to produce the dollars. And so I've been trying to honestly tell the story, and I've got 3 phone calls I've got to return when I get home today, because people want to talk to me about becoming members of our advocate board, Advocate for Seniors, because there really is no senior leadership here in Brevard County. The commissioners that we had that were advocates for seniors are gone. And I'm writing an article. It'll be in Hometown News and other organizations and pieces next week. And but one of the things I think is so important for seniors to realize is that it's never really too late to start a strength training program. If we let ourselves go, and I have done that myself, and I found out the other day when I fell that I no longer had the upper body strength that I used to have. Now, I'm not going to regain that, because I'm not going to go out and pump all kinds of iron. I can't do it. Probably have a heart attack, die, and kill myself. But That's possible. You can go out and do dumb things with weights.
True.
Yeah, but that's why, and Bill has a gym, folks, and Bill teaches a martial arts course to help people with self-protection and everything else. But Bill, can you just give our listening audience just a few thoughts about strength training and why it's so important for seniors, especially if you have to go out and close those shutters, pull those doors, move plants inside. It takes work to do that.
True. And in my office, I get people who come in who are 60 years old and they look like they're 80, and I get 80-year-olds who look like they're 60. And, the common thread is activity. If you stay active, generally you're going to be better off health-wise. And strength training is part of staying active. If you're walking or jogging, that kind of thing is, what we call cardio. And that helps you with your heart, your circulation. But the strength training also helps you retain muscle instead of letting it atrophy, which will give you the strength to go do certain things as well. So you really need to look at both of those things.
What could you advise a senior that's does a lot of couch potato stuff, watches the TV a lot? What are some simple exercises they could do just sitting in that chair?
Well, you can do arm curls and things like that with your arms, bringing your arms up, lifting your arms over your head with weights, just simply things like that. For your legs, doing leg raises, maintaining the muscles in your legs, so lifting your feet off the floor, and anything that gets you moving and usually has some sort of weight involved will help you.
And we don't have to have a lot of weight involved.
No.
4 or 5 pounds of weight is a lot of weight when you haven't used it. It gets to what we call repetitions and how many times you do it.
Correct.
And but here I am giving advice out that I know that I need to take myself, and I have made a commitment to myself that I was going to do that, as well as I have not felt as well, and I know that we can make ourselves. I fully believe we can make ourselves feel good or feel bad. Now, you have to account for medical conditions and everything else, and you don't want to do something foolish. But if you say that I'm going to do what we did with the 16-inch guns on the battleships, train center line and secure, meaning point the guns right down toward the bow of the ship and shut them off and let them rest there, and if you're going to do that way, you're going to try to shoot, you might blow the bow off the ship. The same thing with your body. If you don't do something with it, you're going to hurt. Where is your gym?
My gym's down in Melbourne, just south of Walmart on Sarno, down Wickham, a little further past that.
Okay. Do you have memberships or what?
Yeah, we do memberships, and we have people who come in, sign up. We do jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, boxing, karate, all that good stuff.
What do you teach?
What do I teach? Mainly jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Are you still participating professionally in...
I am not, but I do compete in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but I'm just recovering from that hip replacement.
I forgot about it. Yeah, how is that going?
That's going great. Great. I just got back to teaching, so it'll be a little bit longer before I start actually participating.
When you did the hip thing, did they go in from the back with a small cut and do it?
No, they went through the front.
To the front?
Yep.
And how long is the cut?
It is about 8 inches.
So they had. I wonder if it. It's right on sort of the front side. Is that where it is?
It's right up here on top of the thigh.
Okay.
And then they bring the bone up through between the muscles there.
I guess you had the same kind I did then. So wonder why didn't they do the new version on you? Was there a reason?
Well, that is the new version.
That is the new one?
Yeah.
Okay. They've changed it. Folks, the reason I asked him, Bill, about this, my father had this thing, and he had his hip, the thing put in his, and 7 days later he had to go in and have it taken out and put it back in because the glue didn't hold. So, and then I had to have mine done, and I was, all I could think about was what happened to my dad, and now here I ask Bill on it. But, folks, hurricane conditions cause us to think differently. Growing older, Bill, causes us to think differently. Doing poor planning for estate planning causes us to be unduly concerned when there's absolutely no reason to worry about it when we have an opportunity to take care of all these things. What are some of the things that you would recommend to our listening audience, just based on you being an old law attorney, being a guy that's been involved with all kind of martial arts things yourself, weapons, all these things?
I think the easiest thing is to join a gym and get a trainer, and they can match the training regimen to your age and how high your heartbeat should go and all that good stuff.
That's good advice.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to do it, and make sure that you're taken good care of.
That's the other part of this thing is taking care of yourself, and I think that too many of us in the United States of America do not take care of ourselves, and I think we could do a better job of taking care of ourselves. Think about we're going to wrap the show up, folks, but as we wrap up, please do think about the raffle of the 1951 Ford Victoria, and go to our website, helpingseniors.brevard.org, and see how you might join us in helping take care of other people in our county. Thank you for being with us today. I'll see you next week. Thanks, Bill.